Good morning, everyone. This is Jeffe Kennedy, author of fantasy romance and romantic fantasy. I'm here with my first cup of coffee. Hmm, good. Today is Monday, September 6th. When I was setting up the Zencaster, I put the date in there and I almost put September 4th. I think because I was looking at the 3rd on Friday, but time flies. Already September 6th. It's a Labor Day holiday here in the U.S. Not a holiday for writers who are only mental stevedores. Ah, especially those of us who need to turn in a book to their proofreader um, a week from Wednesday. Is it just me or is my deadline are my deadlines getting tighter as the year slides on by? I think it's really just these last two. And this one's a consequence of that one. Hopefully the next ones will be better. Um, I always have the opportunity with Bright Familiar, don't yell at me, that I could push that release date back if I need to. Um, with Dragon's Daughter, I already pushed it back once on Amazon because I made a mistake because I just put it in there for the wrong date. I had the original release date is September 10th, which astute listeners among you will note is 4 days from now. I have a spreadsheet where I calculate what my release dates can be. So uh, it's pretty elaborate, of course, because I'm the spreadsheet queen, right? Uh, sorry, making Bob there. Bob's your uncle. Yeah. I'm not comfortable this morning. That's my problem here. There. So uh, the spreadsheet. So it's been refined over time, added to, but I calculate out how long it takes me to draft a book. I do pad it a little bit for when the book slows down. Then I have time for cooling, time for beta reading, time for revising. Um, the farther down the process it gets, the more definite the turnaround time. Like I know for Amazon that I have to put in upload 4 days before. It works out to 4 days, even though Amazon says three. For instance, if I'm releasing on September 24th, which I am, it's actually at 11 p.m. Pacific time, US Pacific time, on the 23rd for me. So then it's 3 days before that. So functionally, it's 4 days on my calendar. 4 days to upload, um, a day for proofing and any corrections. My formatter prefers 3 days turnaround. He can do it in 24 if I need him to. I try not to abuse that. And my proofreader is down to 5 days with a day in between for proofreading. So those things I have stacked out pretty clearly. Like with the, I can do 24 hours instead of 3 days. I That's a little bit of buffering in there, and it doesn't really take me a full day to uh, go through track changes and that sort of thing. So again, there's a bit of buffering in there. But where the real sliding occurs is I know that I need to get it to my proofreader by a particular date because that's her time. And then where the where it really slides is like the beta reading and revising and stuff. But I've already been revising. I didn't quite finish the revision on Friday. I've still got like 50 pages to go, but and then about 22,000 words to add yet. I can do it. It'll just be tight. Um, it'll be fine. Worked out fine on the last book, right? Wearing a new dress today. See, it's purple. Matches my my iridescent purple mug in a way. It has butterflies on it. You guys probably can't see it on even if you're on video. Let's see if I could show you my skirt without showing anything. I'm kind of sitting on a lot of it here. See, butterflies. They're pretty. So, um, so yeah, that's where I am. I'm not feeling panicked. I know ever so slightly spacey. I've got book brain. Um, but the other thing I notice, and I've talked about this before, but I do think it's an interesting phenomenon that um, writers often talk about plot bunnies, about the new shiny, about getting an idea in the midst of work for something else entirely while working on a thing. Um, and there's a couple things going on here. And I know I've talked about this before, but I do think it's worth revisiting because I discover something new about it, or I discover it anew every time. Um, so one thing that happens is that, sorry, I started thinking about something else. One is displacement activity. It's the urgent desire to be doing anything but what you're doing. Writing a book is hard. Finishing a book is harder. Having the ability to stick through a book all the way to the end is one of the maybe least discussed, not least discussed, but it's not always discussed how important that is to writers. Um, that having the grit to go all the way through and stick it out is it just takes a lot. It kind of goes back to that blog post that I did last week on the, this whole thing. If you're bored, your reader will be too. It's like sometimes it's maybe bored isn't the right word. Some of the other SFF7 defined it in different ways, but it's not necessarily boredom, but it's definitely feeling that grinding slog. And I appreciated those of you who weighed in and said, yeah. Marcella Bernard's post on Friday I thought was particularly good. She really she really nailed it about the how you just get sick of yourself. You get sick of your own process and you get tired of the book, and it ain't easy. There's a reason why so many people talk about writing books and not many of them actually do it. So one thing that happens is people get partway through a book and then they go, oh, look, a squirrel. Oh, look, a plot bunny. And they go chasing the plot bunny and they write it down. And I do think that this is a kind of brain displacement. This is looking for sort of our subconscious or our brains or what have you, seizing on anything to get us out of the pain of writing that thing that we're supposed to be writing that we don't want to write anymore. Happens to everyone. The difference between professional writers and those who don't finish books is that the pros keep going, uh, stick it through, and it ain't fun. It ain't fun sometimes. Sometimes it is. So, but then I think there's something else going on because I've noticed that I took the weekend off. Um, I worked on some other things. I got quite a few things off of my to do list, which was great. But I did not work on the book. Tempting though it was, I knew that it would just make me tired and I needed a couple days away from it. But I kept thinking of more ideas. Um, I came up, got like 3 ideas for new books over the weekend. And there's one I mentioned last week that was like the new secret project that I knew you guys would be annoyed with me about. The one that would have a action packed opening. Let's call that the, I'll never remember my code names, will I? Um, the action fantasy. It's the action fantasy. I still think it's a great idea, and I keep thinking about that one. I kind of want to write that. It's actually, I had a new idea, and then it fits perfectly in with this other idea I've been nursing. So it's a good one. I'm also thinking about the science fiction book that I started a while ago that we weren't able to place, that I am planning to self publish. I had another conversation with Sarah. I don't know if I mentioned that, Agent Sarah, uh, where we decided I wanted her to go back and talk to some of the editors and ask if I took out this one element, if they would want to see it again. And she just felt like that wouldn't be productive. So I was like, okay, I'll self publish it. So I'm planning to do that early next year in my spare time. No, actually, I have it on the schedule. I have it figured in. That's probably what I'll write after Bright Familiar. Mosquito. Uh, oh, look, a mosquito. So then I had another idea, and I'll just tell you, you guys, I got an idea for a vampire story, and I even asked Dorinda. And we came back from break, and I said, "Is it wrong that I want to write a vampire story?" And she said, "Girl, I have 3 vampire stories outlined." It's like, geez, I want to do a vampire story. Seriously, want to do a vampire story. Uh, and it's funny because she asked me what mine's about. She said, "Do you mind saying what it's about?" And it's funny when I tried to tell, so Dorinda is someone I trust. You know, I've talked about shaken baby syndrome before. I should probably explain it just in case you're a new listener. Um, shaken baby syndrome is a somewhat gruesome analogy, but I think it's perfect for uh, what it's like when you have a new story idea, or even a book or story that's just a little ways along, uh, and you give it to someone too soon, and they shake it and they give it brain damage, or they snap its neck. Sorry for the gruesomeness, but it's important to know because it's it's a great analogy because you have to think about your new idea or your fresh little story as an infant, as a delicate, tender infant. You've got to support its head. You've got to be very careful. It's still got that soft spot in the skull. The skull plates haven't completely fused yet. You don't hand your infant to just anybody and say, "What do you think of my baby?" Because some people are going to take the baby and hold it up and shake it and go, I don't know. Does it talk? Does it walk? Does it do much? It's no, I don't know why you even like this baby. This would be the example of someone critiquing your story idea who doesn't care about the well being of your baby. Really, no one will care about the well being of your baby as much as you do. Agents can be uh, harsh this way. I wanted to say terrible, but this is their job. Your agent, if you have one or if you get one, their job is to take the baby or the child or your, really what you want to do is you want to wait till your book or your story is like a teenager, with all of the attendant teenager toughness. um, when it's like sarcastic and it doesn't care what any of the adults think because it's its own person, and it's going to, by God, go out there and live its life. That's when you show it to someone like your agent, because your agent will take your teenager off in another room and interrogate them, maybe punch them around a little bit and say, "Can you stand up to this?" And you have to be the good parent and let it go and wait in the other room. And then when your teenager comes sniffling back to you and says, "Oh, the agent was so mean to me because I don't have these skills," you'd be like, "That's okay, honey. We'll get you a tutor." That's my extended analogy. My point being that there are people that you can hand your infant to. Um, there are close friends, there are family, people you trust to even babysit your infant overnight, right? Because you know they'll take care of it. Dorinda is someone that I can share a very fresh new idea with. and she will not hurt my baby. I would not tell this any of these ideas to Agent Sarah yet because I know that Agent Sarah would say, "Well, look, it doesn't walk, it doesn't talk, it's no good." I have to wait until I grow it up a little bit. I could show my agent the the baby when it's like maybe 7 and capable of having an intelligent conversation. Probably not before that. See what I'm saying? So Brenda asked me what my idea was, and no, I'm not going to tell you guys. Sorry if you've been waiting with bated breath for me to reveal the idea because you all are not necessarily good with infants. Some of you might be, not all y'all. Um, you could just be the ones who are very excited that I have a new baby, and you could like send me booties or something, but you don't get to hold it. But it's funny when I told her the idea, it's like my ideas are so not fleshed out compared to hers, because she like goes and outlines them. And so I just tell her like character and situation. Oh, it's about this character in this situation. Oh, that's like my whole idea. And I could see her kind of blink at me. She's like, well, that sounds really cool. Cute baby. So anyway, I do think that there is something to this that when we are deeply working on something, that we are pulling so much water up out of the creative well, different analogy, that it kind of splashes out and a lot of other things start coming up too. And I think it's just a sign of good flow. It means that the creative juices are flowing and that we are coming up with good stuff. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea, but I do think you have to have a system for perusing and nursing those ideas. And this is where Dorinda and I are totally different because she was telling me that she had an idea for our midwinter fantasy romance holiday. I said that in the wrong order anthology. Um, she said as she was driving her husband to the doctor in another part of New Mexico, I think, a couple of weeks ago, that she had this great idea for the story, but then she forgot it. And I said, "Oh, you'll remember it because I really do believe this. I think these things come back to us that they're not gone entirely." And she is like, "My brain does not work like yours. If I forget it, it is gone." I still don't believe her. I think it'll come back to her, but she says no. And we were talking about vampires. She said she'd had this whole origin story worked out for the vampires, and that she's forgotten what it was, and that she wrote it down, and she can't find where she wrote it down. So if you are that person and you need to write it down, but don't succumb to the urge to write too much. On the other end of the spectrum, like Scalzi, Jonathan Scalzi talks about that if he has an idea, he examines it, mulls it over, puts it away. If he still has the idea the next day, he mulls it over some more, puts it away. If he still has it a week later, takes it out, mulls it over, puts it away again. If he still has it a month later or a year later, he does the same. And he says if he has the same idea like a year later, that's when he knows it's a good idea. This is his answer to where do you get your ideas or how do you know that a story idea is a good one. Um, for him, clearly, he figures if it doesn't persist in memory, that it's not worth persisting. And I don't know, I might be something of the same mind. I make notes about my stories sometimes if I want to make sure not to forget them, or I'll write down a little bit like of a dream or something to capture that feel. And then when I come back later and look at it, it's not there. The magic's not there. Um, Elizabeth Gilbert thinks that ideas visit you for a short time and that if you don't take them, they move on and find somebody else. That's in her Big Magic book, which I think is an intriguing idea, but I'm not sure I believe it. What do you guys think? I'd be interested to hear from you creatives out there. Do you write down your ideas? Do you save them? How do how do you nurture them over time? On that note, I'll remind you that First Cup of Coffee is part of the Frolic Media Podcast Network, and you will find more podcasts you love at frolic.media/podcasts. I will talk to you all tomorrow. Take care. Bye bye.